It was a pleasure.
That's okay. No, he can tell us how much he likes Canada. Because
I love Canada. And I really appreciate that we have such relations with you, Justin.
Canada loves Ukraine, and I love Canada. These words from President Zelensky reveal the extraordinary bond forming between our nations. But they've triggered alarm bells in Trump's camp. As Trudeau stood before EU leaders in Kyiv, he made one statement that left diplomats stunned.
Invaders so effectively over the past years. It's not just Canada, a number of countries have been involved. But for historical reasons, Canada having the second largest diaspora of Ukrainians in the world means that we felt deeply connected to Ukraine, but we also believe deeply that it's not just about Ukraine. It's about the rules and the values and the principles of sovereignty, of independence, of territorial integrity that protects every country in the world.
The opposition is now calling for Trump to be barred from the upcoming G7 summit in Canada. But the real story is what Ukrainian veterans told us off camera. Their desperate fear that American weapon systems could disappear overnight, leaving their frontline soldiers defenseless against Putin's advancing forces.
Canada has been there for Ukraine from day one, indeed from before day one, as in 2015 we started training Ukrainian military forces on the ground in Ukraine, which was a significant part, Western training to the Ukrainian armed forces.
Trudeau's bold stand, the Kyiv declaration that shocked the world, in a stunning move that sent shockwaves across the diplomatic world. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just delivered one of the most forceful rebukes of Russia we've seen from a Western leader, standing in Kyiv with air raid sirens wailing ominously in the background. Trudeau didn't mince words about who's responsible for this devastating conflict. Russia illegally and unjustifiably invaded Ukraine for 3 years now. Trudeau declared firmly while standing shoulder to shoulder with President Zelensky. The timing couldn't be more significant as Trump continues pushing his dangerous narrative that Ukraine somehow provoked this war. Trudeau just blew that theory to pieces on the world stage. But Trudeau didn't stop at words. He backed up his bold stance with something Trump's team absolutely hates: cold, hard cash and military might. In a revelation that has defense analysts buzzing, Trudeau announced that Canada has more than tripled its defense spending since he took office. This massive military spending surge isn't just about numbers. It's Trudeau's direct challenge to Trump's vision of abandoning Ukraine to Putin's aggression. When Trudeau took office, Canada's defense spending languished below 1%. Now they're charging toward NATO's 2% target in what can only be described as a financial declaration of war against Russian aggression. The Canadian leader dropped another bombshell that has Trump's advisors fuming. 25 additional LAV-3 infantry fighting vehicles are now heading to Ukraine, alongside 2 armored combat support vehicles. Ukrainian forces are already training on this equipment in Germany, preparing to deploy these Canadian-made weapons against Russian forces. What's truly remarkable about Trudeau's stance is how it reveals a relationship with Ukraine that began long before the headlines and photo ops. Canadian military trainers have been quietly building Ukraine's defense capabilities since 2015, establishing critical expertise that helped Ukraine withstand Russia's initial assault. When many expected Kyiv to fall within days, this long-term military partnership explains something that's confused many observers: why Ukrainian soldiers seem to have such affection for Canadian forces.
We have such relations with you, Justin, and you helped a lot, and a lot of your people helped us at the very beginning of war. We never shared, by the way, that we've been in touch, and really at the very beginning of the war, we didn't have really huge technologies with drones and etc. When we began to produce drones, and even when we bought drones with some partners.
These aren't just diplomatic pleasantries. They reflect years of side-by-side training that created bonds. Trump seems completely uninterested in understanding. The contrast between Trudeau's approach and Trump's couldn't be more stark. While Trump speaks of forcing Ukraine to surrender territory to achieve peace, Trudeau is putting Canadian resources behind a fundamentally different vision. His statement that Ukrainians fight for democracy, freedom, and sovereignty is a fight that matters to us all directly contradicts Trump's America First isolationism. What has diplomats scrambling for their phones right now is the implicit long-term security commitment Trudeau's actions suggest. By establishing this level of military support during active conflict, Canada is positioning itself as a key security partner for post-war Ukraine, something that directly challenges Trump's apparent willingness to abandon the country to Russia's sphere of influence. Perhaps the most powerful moment came not from planned remarks, but from the chilling reality of war itself. As Trudeau spoke of Canada's commitment, air raid sirens began wailing across Kyiv, a haunting reminder that this isn't just political theater, but a matter of survival for millions of Ukrainians. That Trudeau continued his remarks, undeterred, spoke volumes about his resolve. The Zelensky-Trudeau alliance, a desperate plea as American support hangs by a thread. Those sirens Trudeau stood through, they're exactly what Ukrainian veterans fear they'll face without protection if America abandons them. Beneath Zelensky's public gratitude lies a private terror so severe that it's driven him to reveal classified details about the war's earliest days, including how a Canadian technology nobody's talking about saved countless Ukrainian lives when they had nothing else to fight with. Canada loves Ukraine, and I love Canada. These words from Zelensky weren't just diplomatic niceties exchanged during a summit. They were a desperate cry for help from a leader watching his country's survival hang by a thread, as Trump's America threatens to cut the lifeline they've depended on. Ukrainian soldiers are panicking. Behind closed doors, they're telling anyone who will listen about their greatest fear. Waking up one morning to discover American anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems have vanished overnight. These aren't just weapons. They're the only thing standing between Ukrainian frontline positions and total annihilation by Putin's bombers. In what appears to be a calculated move to secure continued support, Zelensky has done something unprecedented. He's pulled back the curtain on classified details about the war's darkest early days that he's never shared publicly before. During his address, he revealed how Canadian high-level optic technologies for drones literally saved countless Ukrainian lives when they had virtually nothing else to defend themselves with. These technologies saved countless Ukrainian lives during the early days of the war when we had limited resources. Zelensky admitted, his voice cracking with emotion. Canada helped Ukraine produce drones and provided essential technologies that were not available from other partners at the time.
They didn't have Canadian high-level optic technologies, and Canada helped us with this, and we spoke a lot of this, and we had this, and we began to help our guys on the front line, on the battlefield, with these drones and etc. It was really first weeks and first months of the first year of war. Then, Justin, absolutely right about training missions. Really, the part of our army was prepared by Canadian officers, instructors. But what is very important.
But the bombshell didn't stop there. Zelensky then referenced private conversations with Trudeau from the very beginning of war. Discussions so sensitive and critical that he's kept them completely confidential until now. These weren't just casual chats between world leaders. They were desperate pleas for help during Ukraine's darkest hours. When Russian forces were at Kyiv's doorstep and the world thought Ukraine would fall within days. The desperation isn't just coming from Ukraine. Canada's own political establishment is showing signs of panic over Trump's Ukraine stance. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has made the shocking demand that Trump be prohibited from attending the upcoming G7 summit in Canada, a diplomatic nuclear option that would create an unprecedented crisis between the world's closest allies. Singh's inflammatory statement that he would rather stand next to Zelensky than Donald Trump isn't just political posturing. It's a reflection of the growing terror among Canada's political class about what happens to Ukraine if Trump returns to power and follows through on his threats to abandon Kyiv. This explains why Trudeau chaired a virtual G7 meeting from Kyiv itself, rather than from the comfort of Ottawa. This wasn't just symbolism or a photo opportunity. It was a frantic attempt to lock in Western support while there's still time, before Trump potentially yanks the rug out from under the entire Ukrainian defense strategy. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ukrainian veterans, speaking off-camera to reporters, painted a chilling picture of what happens without American protection. We are terrified that American anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems could be withdrawn. One battle-hardened soldier confessed, his hands shaking. Without them, we're completely vulnerable to Russian attacks. It would be catastrophic. As if sensing this growing dread, Spain announced during the summit a massive aid package of €1 billion for Ukraine. But the question haunting everyone in that room was whether European support alone could possibly fill the gaping hole that would be left if America walks away. As Trudeau stands firm in Kyiv, the divide between Canadian and potential American approaches to Ukraine couldn't be more dramatic. The Prime Minister's declaration that everything is on the table to ensure might no longer makes right in this world represents a desperate gamble that Canada's values-based international stance can somehow weather the storm brewing from the south. What's truly haunting is the raw, unfiltered fear Ukrainian veterans are expressing behind closed doors. Without American weapons, we die. It's that simple, one soldier told reporters, his voice cracking with emotion. This isn't political theater, it's survival. Security experts now predict that if American support collapses, Canada would be forced to dramatically escalate its military contributions and forge even stronger European alliances. But the brutal question remains, can Canada's commitment alone fill the gaping hole that would be left by American withdrawal? The fate of a nation under siege hangs in the balance.